Good morning, Grizzlies. All right, so baby is safe. Baby was found with Al Capone, and Natalie is the one who found the baby. So let's finish up with chapter 35 today. We're almost done with this book. We'll actually finish it tomorrow, and then we will do a little bit of work with the author's notes as well. So, chapter 35 The Pixie Jailer Playground, Thursday, September 19th, 1935. Right after the escape attempt, there is a euphoria that envelops the island. Everyone from Warden Williams to Darby Trixel is amazed by what 7 kids were able to do all on our own. No one could get enough of the story, demanding we tell our version of events again and again. My parents are practically bursting with pride because of what I did and because of Natalie. Not only did Natalie understand exactly what was going on, but she figured out something I hadn't. This very fact has given us hope we didn't have before. Natalie is getting better. Maybe not in the dramatic way my mom thinks she is, but better for Natalie. How did it happen that 3 convicts came so close to escaping from the world's most secure prison? Slowly, some of the pieces began to fall in place. May delivered the boat keys to the island wrapped in her handkerchief. A convict swept them up with his push broom and slipped them in his pocket. The keys probably came from an officer on Angel Island. Our boat, the Cox, is owned by the Army, and someone on Angel Island has a key. Capone helped out his hospital cellmate, Seven Fingers, but he did not try to escape. He was smart enough to know the escape was ill-conceived. He wanted no trouble with the guards who have the power to extend his sentence, or with the cons who would kill him if he didn't contribute to the escape. He got May to bring in the keys to the boat. He played his banjo every night to mask the sound of Seven Fingers sawing the bars with his floss. And he conveniently got behind in his guard shoe shine service, so he had 2 pairs of guard shoes in his cell, one for Buddy and one for Seven Fingers. One arm stole a pair of the warden's shoes, which were 3 sizes too large. Each morning we wake up and find out something else. We still don't know how Seven Fingers got out of the cell house. No one knows how he got that key. My dad says we may never know. It all seems so exciting, and then one day, it isn't. That's the day we find out the warden thinks the cons had help from the inside. The escape, he says, could not have happened without the aid of one of us. Then my father, Associate Warden Chudley, Trixel, Madaman, Bomini, and every other officer not on duty is called to the warden's office for a meeting that lasts all day and on until the wee hours of the night. One by one, and in groups, every man on the island is personally grilled by the warden. More meetings go on for days, and when my dad comes home each night, his toothpick box is empty, and the deep furrows down the sides of his mouth are back. He and my mother close the door of their room and whisper well into the morning. I go into Nat's room, stand outside their door, even sneak into the secret passageway, but all I hear is muffled mumbles. No one knows what's happening now. Natalie, who was supposed to return to the Esther P. Marinoff School the night after the escape, is still with us. And when I ask my mom why Nat hasn't returned to school, she evades my question with a tight-lipped smile, giving no inkling of what's going on. Finally, when I can stand it no longer, my father agrees to talk. There's some debate about whether Natalie should be included in the discussion, but in the end, my dad decides that Natalie has earned this right. She's allowed to sit in her favorite spot on the floor, flipping the pages of her books. It's as if Natalie has earned a place in our family she didn't have before. My father paces. He picks up his box of toothpicks from the coffee table and moves it to the kitchen table, then moves it back. I look from my mom to my dad, wondering why are they so upset. "We're going to be kicked off the island, are we?" I ask. "No," my father answers, his eyes watchful. "What did the warden say?" "What can he say? The passman worked at his house. It was his idea to throw that party and invite all of his best men. There's plenty of blame to go around." "What about Natalie? Is he mad at her?" "How can he be mad at her? She found his baby son. Even Trixel gave Natalie credit for letting him know Seven Fingers was unarmed. Of course, Darby being Darby, he waxed eloquent on the need for a full report to J. Edgar Hoover until Madaman pointed out that right now in his own living room was a bar spreader being used as a carnival pole. It's the centerpiece of Janet's Pixie merry-go-round. So I've heard. Janet says she found it on the West Side beach, says it just washed up on the island. I don't think that one's flying. The bar spreader is made of steel. It would sink like a stone for one thing. Do they think Trixel had something to do with the escape? My father shrugs. It hasn't been ruled out. I think about how much I hate Trixel, how he tries to trip me up whenever he can, how awful he is to Natalie, how sick I felt when he talked about how he treated his brother. If I open my mouth, I'm putting Natalie in jeopardy, but I wasn't brought up to let someone else take the blame for something he didn't do, even if it is a nitwit like Darby Trixel. The bar spreader was in Natalie's suitcase, I tell my father. Jimmy threw it in the bay, but he can't throw to save his life, so it didn't go very far. Janet Trixel found it and decided to use it for her pixie ponies. She had no idea what it was. Natalie? Natalie's involved in this? My mom's voice is wrung tight. My father gulps as if he swallowed one of his toothpicks. Yes, I whisper. Bottom drawer, Natalie murmurs, pulling at her dress like it's bothering her. My father ignores this. His attention is riveted on me. How did it get in her suitcase? I shake my head. I don't know. My father frowns, trying to see inside me. You don't know? The question hangs between us. He clearly thinks I know more, but I've told him the truth. I have no idea how the bar spreader got there. Moose, remember when you had that nightmare about 105? Was that after you found the bar spreader? Yes, I whisper, focusing my attention on my baseball bat, which is leaning against the door to my room. And that's when the metal detector went off, and Riv thought it was because of the metal buttons? Yes. My father looks at my mother. My mother nods a tiny nod. That fits, he says. But why did you suspect 105? That's the part I don't understand. I just did. You just did? My father's voice has a hot edge. I study the pattern on the carpet. I think 105, I'm breathing hard, like saying these words requires more lung power than I possess. Liked her, I mutter as the memory of 105 holding hands with Natalie comes flooding back. My mom and dad stare at each other, their faces washed gray in the dusk. My mom nods to my dad as if to signal him to go on. My dad takes a deep breath. You were right to worry about 105, he says. Sadie called us a few days ago. She said that Johnny J., Alcatraz 105, a.k.a. Onion, worked as a gardener at the Esther P. Marinoff School for a few weeks and then he disappeared. Apparently, he faked his references and they didn't know his background. They only found out because they discovered a letter he wrote to Natalie. I swallow a big gulp of air. A letter? He wrote her a letter? My father bites his lip. Yes. What kind of a letter? He groans, stares out the window at the guard tower. A love letter, he whispers. I look at Nat, who is concentrating on her button box. She has taken all of her buttons out and she's putting them back in a new order. The letter said 105 loves her? I ask. My father makes a clicking noise. It was a goodbye love letter. Isn't that right, Helen? It said he was going back home to Portland for good. Everyone at the Esther P. Marinoff knows who he is now, my mom whispers. They aren't going to let him anywhere near Natalie. The man lied about his references. Can't blame him for that. Hard enough to get a job with half the country out of work. It's impossible if you've got a record. My dad shakes his head. It's not going to be easy to prove he put a bar spreader in Natalie's suitcase. We won't need to prove that. We won't be prosecuting, my mother snaps. My father splits a toothpick in two. Of course we will, Helen. Over my dead body. My mother's voice has gone cold as a cadaver. The papers get a hold of this, and what do you think will happen? Think this through, Cam. Crazy daughter of Alcatraz guard aids escape, I say. But the cons never got the bar spreader. Natalie didn't help the cons to escape. She helped stopping them from escaping. I know what she did. You know what she did, my mother says. But what will some reporter who wants a sensational story make of it? We can't have that much attention focused on Natalie. The warden will kick us out of here. He'll have no choice. My father shakes his head. Why didn't you tell us about this, Moose? Same reason we didn't tell him, Cam, my mom whispers. He was protecting us, just like we were protecting him. He should have told us. My father sighs. Nobody can do this all alone. Nobody has all the pieces. We need each other. And what if Moose had told you? You would have run up to the warden in a heartbeat. We'd be off the island with no means of support and no way to pay for the Esther P. Marinoff school. You think Moose doesn't know all that? My mom is on the edge of her seat. Her chest is heaving from the force of her words. It wasn't the right thing to do, my father insists. In a perfect world, you'd be right, my mom answers. Helen, come on, look what happened here. The whole place fell apart. The bar spreader didn't cause that. The bar spreader didn't do anything but prop up a 7-year-old's pretend ponies, my mom tells him. Okay, my father says, but it could have. We got lucky is all. My mom leans in, her pupils so large they take over the brown of her eyes. Maybe we did, but like you said, there's enough blame to go around here, Cam. The warden is going to dig the deepest hole he can and bury this. He's going to see the light just like Trixel did. Do you think he wants to give a report to J. Edgar Hoover that says everything fell apart while he was throwing a party? The only people who really were on top of the situation were kids? Can you imagine those headlines? Kids apprehend escaping prisoners, I say. The kids. We. Natalie mutters like she's practicing for Sadie. We need to tell the warden about this, Helen. My father's voice is calm but deadly firm. We will do no such thing, my mother answers. Helen. My father's eyes bore a hole into her. I can't live this way. We will tell the warden and we'll see what happens, but you're probably correct, he concedes. So long as the press doesn't get wind of it, the warden will most likely let this go. My mom doesn't answer, but I think she knows she's lost this one. Her silence is consent. And from now on, I want to know what's going on. You understand? My father points a toothpick at me. Natalie caused problem. Natalie, I caused problems, Nat mutters. No, you didn't, sweet pea, my dad tells her. You made me proud, and don't you forget it. I am a trooper, Nat whispers. I am. Me. My father walks over to where I'm sitting with Natalie. He pats my shoulder awkwardly and gently touches her hair. We're a family of troopers. We'll get through this, Helen, the same way we always do, by doing the right thing.